used to be asked not to sing. And in this instance, that void is filled with the spoken word that is supposed to help get on with the celebration of this ceremony. Fair housing is very near and dear to my heart. It launched me into the world of business and finance and upsmanship in a way that I had least expected. I was born in poverty. My earliest experience with housing was poverty housing, slum housing. And having, in my early years, endured the indignities of that economic life and condition, to have been smiled upon by good fortune to hit upon a career that found public fancy and enabled me to become economically solvent, I decided that I could now break free from the shackles of slum housing. And in my love for New York City, where I was born, my immigrant parents came from Jamaica, and I was the first of a lot. I couldn't afford rent that I was eager to pay to live in a place that had greater comfort than where I grew up. So I set out to find a nice place in which to live. I felt secure and confident that the fortune that was smiled on me would be more than fleeting. So I went out and started to look for an apartment here in New York and found a place that I just loved. And when I went in to get it, my agent told me that they'd gotten it, I went to see it. And when the owner of the building discovered that the person that he heard of that wanted to buy the building was Belafonte, he didn't know who I was. And he thought I was French, as the story goes. And when he found out that I was African-American, Negro, he promptly found all sorts of reasons why I could not rent. And the word came back, and I challenged him in our exchange on the subject of fair housing. He got very, very aggressive and condescending. And of course, I just simply got pissed off, and I bought the building. I spend the rest of my life paying back the interest on the loan. But then something remarkable happened. A woman who had pressed me into service in the work that she did as an activist and as a remarkable American, Eleanor Roosevelt, who wrote then in those days for the New York Post, wrote an open letter inviting me to come live with her, saying that she had space in her home on the east side and that she would be more than honored and welcome to have me and my then young family become her neighbor and her partner in her facility. And I was quite moved because she and I had been doing some work at the United Nations, working on, at that time, the execution of the Declaration of Human Rights, something that she had helped frame and put into place. And I told her then that I thought that the invitation was really beyond my capacity to fathom. It was such an opportunity, but I couldn't do it. That to find so easy an escape for me to be in her presence was very attractive. But then I needed to stay in a place where I could continue to raise a voice and wage a sound for those who faced what I did on the absence of fair housing. In the course of that life, I found out how important housing was. Because when in the great struggle for integration in the schools, which are my reason for being here, to honor someone who had a big role in that. When we talked about schools and the world of integration, she took exception to to the fact that the school system was the first to be receiving the brunt of the responsibility for doing things that education was never quite intended to do. To impose upon the schooling system integration was to wreck that system, to ask for all that should be done by government, that should be done by several other agencies, that should have been done by a fair housing policy, would not be delivered to the mechanics of institutions of education. Instead of teachers being able to just teach, with that intervention, they now have to become psychiatrists, policemen, and especially in underserved communities, where she said the solution was not integration of schools, but integration of housing. Because if you can integrate the community, if you can integrate the way in which we lived with one another, the schools will automatically be integrated. And that way the distribution for the joys of integration and the promise of America would be rewarded by families being involved on a daily basis with the issues of integration, not just the school system and children being, well, all the stories that we know. So when I was invited to come and be of service this evening, two things attracted me. One was because it came from fair housing, which I knew a bit about. And I was delighted to see when I asked them to give me some briefing that in the pamphlet they sent, one of the things was this wonderful quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. And rekindled my memories of that story I just told. And to do that for an institution that would have been more than actively impressed upon to involve itself when I was looking for a place to live, now it exists. It's here. And it services thousands and thousands of people made up of families that have suffered the indignities of the absence of fair housing. And it does a lot to be able to keep our democratic sensibilities in touch with our responsibilities. And then when I heard whom they were honoring, I thought it was payback time. Because there's hardly an event that I've been involved in my many choices as an activist, whether it be internationally, especially nations involved in Africa and the African diaspora, and certainly here in the United States, a host of human rights and civil rights issues. Whenever some of our most pressing needs require the attention of the law, one of the persons that are most consistent in assisting us to fulfill the mandates that we face on the laws that are extremely complicated, a man by the name of Charles Ogletree is always called upon. And when I first heard the name, I didn't quite know who he was, and had assumed for a very long time that he was some wonderful, white, jolly fellow somewhere in America doing good deeds. And then I finally got a picture of Charles Ogletree. And it seems from the day that we met until now, hardly a week goes by where I'm not involved in something where Charles Ogletree is at the head of, or spearheading, or pushing, or supporting. He's a man that I admire greatly. I've called upon him for his services for those who are in need of the protection of the law. But not only did he bring the skills and the power of his platform as a dean of one of the deans of Harvard Law School, and teaching so many really remarkable individuals who were in his classes, not the least of which was Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, who were his students. But for all the things that he's done in dealing with many Afro-American or African descending immigrants who have been pressed by misapplication of the law, who suffer terribly looking for legal assistance. My point is that Charles Ogletree has never ever said no to any of the causes that we've pressed upon him, and I'm not quite sure how he does it all, but I'm trying to catch up. I think it says something about Fair Housing Justice Center that has selected Charles to be the honoree, one of the honorees for for this award. Nobody deserves it more, and nothing could have given me greater delight than to be able to stand here and to say thank you to the Fair Housing Justice Council for the invitation and a chance to tell Charlie that I'm glad it's your turn in the bucket. I'm glad to be able to introduce you this evening and to thank you once again, my fellow artists, for your turn in introducing me. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure, great delight to give you my friend and fellow traveler, Professor Charles Ogletree.
It's like picking cotton.